Discover the incredible moment when a shy cleaner transforms and saves a CEO's biggest client. Charlie, the office cleaner at a high-powered financial firm, quietly maneuvered through the gleaming hallways, focusing on his mops and buckets while the hum of corporate ambition filled the air. It was a world of suits, sharp ties, and ambition, with him as just a flicker on the periphery. Each day, he slipped through the cracks, a ghost in the glorious machinery of capitalism. Yet behind the smiles he polished away was his mother's dwindling savings and his sister's dreams. They lived in a one-bedroom in Queens while he grasped at the remnants of hope beneath the weight of their needs. One drizzly afternoon, the storm inside the firm rivaled the one outside. Rebecca, the firm's relentless CEO, fought to keep her composure as her team rushed to salvage their largest client, a titan of industry on the brink of pulling out. Tension thickened the air, and Charlie, cleaning supplies in hand, shouldered aside to eavesdrop, his instincts tinged with curiosity. He overheard words like desperation and disconnection. The client needed more than glossy presentations, they craved authenticity. The realization hit Charlie like a freight train, and with it came a wave of self-doubt. As he pushed his mop through the corridors, he wrestled with fear. What would it mean to step out from the shadows? His heart raced and his palms sweated just thinking about crossing that line. The weight of his family's expectations pressed on his shoulders. To abandon his role would mean risking the safety of his mundane but stable life. Yet the knowledge he had gathered through street stories of survival buzzed in his mind. What if it meant saving their precarious living situation? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heart in his throat, he decided to take a leap that felt unnaturally gigantic. He would reach out to the client, hoping to bring out the stories of struggle that had shaped him, stories their high-powered meetings overlooked. In that moment, a flicker of purpose entwined with crippling insecurity. What if he failed? The thought gnawed at him. He pictured Rebecca's cold blue eyes piercing through him, ripping apart the idea of a cleaner trying to break through the corporate veneer. As the meeting loomed closer, Charlie's mind spun like a tornado. He grappled with the notion that he could either seize this unprecedented opportunity or retreat to anonymity, forever resigned to sweeping floors. The walls seemed to close in, the chatter of executives a constant reminder of the divide, a world where he didn't belong. His pulse quickened, the stakes had never felt higher. Would he gather the nerve to connect with the client emotionally, to share his experiences, or would the constraints of loyalty to his family crush his ambition? The clock ticked down as Charlie stood between choice and fear, the opportunity of a lifetime within grasp yet almost impossibly distant. Charlie tightened his grip on the mop handle, its cold metal grounding him amidst the chaos of swirling thoughts. The polished floor beneath him reflected the bright lights overhead, an endless sea of harsh illumination further obscuring his nervous shadow. He inhaled deeply, his breath hitching as possibilities clashed in his mind like the thunderstorm that raged outside. This wasn't just about cleaning anymore, it was about stepping into a world he had only peeked into from the sidelines. Moments later, the clamor of voices intensified as Rebecca and her team entered the conference room, their suits sharply contrasting the dullness of Charlie's work attire. He couldn't help but overhear snippets of their discussions about upcoming strategies, marketing jargon washing over him like waves crashing against the shore of his insecurities. They discussed the need for engagement, yet Charlie saw them as disconnected from the very essence of what the client might need. Deep down, he wondered if his voice could add a layer of humanity to their polished presentations. As the minutes ticked by, the ideas coiled inside him like tightly wound springs. Charlie had a perspective forged from real-life encounters, moments of vulnerability, and arrays of emotions. Conversations he had caught on the street sat on the tip of his tongue, begging to be articulated. With each anecdote circling in his mind, confidence bubbled up, even as fear rooted him in place. What was he afraid of? The thought raced through him. Failure? Yet, he realized he had failed many times before, most notably, when he had chosen to be silent. How many chances had he missed to shout, to step forward and declare his presence? The very act of speaking out could be revolutionary, not just for him but for the very client that was at stake. They wanted connection, he had it to offer. Rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous habit, Charlie made a decision. Perhaps the storm brewing inside him was a signal, a call to action. He would approach Rebecca. He would dispel the doubts with dialogue. With his heart racing, he took a moment to compose himself, mentally rehearsing his words. They would not be perfect, but they would be genuine. As he strode toward the conference room, he caught a glimpse of himself in the reflective surface of a window. The face staring back was one he barely recognized, determined, daring, perhaps even slightly rebellious. This moment belonged to him. For so long, he had hidden in shadows, content to play the part of an observer. But now, the prospect of failure felt more like a stepping stone than an obstacle. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the threshold of the conference room, the ambient noise fading as the spotlight of his intention illuminated the dim corners of self-doubt. "Excuse me, Rebecca," he said, his voice steady but not daunting. The sounds of conversation dulled, and all eyes turned toward him. The tension in the air shifted, electrified by the sudden rupture of the expectation that he would always remain in the background. He sensed her piercing blue eyes analyzing him, peeling away the layers of his identity. Would she see a mere cleaner, or would she recognize the depth of emotion and experience he brought forth? That moment of stillness hung in the air, readying itself for insight or confrontation. Charlie stood poised to face the unfolding mystery, completely unaware that this singular decision to speak could redefine not only who he was in that moment but also the course of his entire life. And in that pivotal instant, Charlie understood that the stakes were much higher than he had ever imagined. He either seized the day or fell once again into the shadow of anonymity. "Charlie, right?" Rebecca's voice sliced through the tension, and he nodded, his heart racing. Her recognition was both unsettling and energizing. Behind the strength of her presence, though, he sensed a flicker of curiosity. I couldn't help but overhear his words wavered slightly as he continued. He forced himself to maintain eye contact with her, grounding himself in her steadfast gaze. "You were talking about engaging clients. I think I have some ideas on that." A ripple of surprise darted through the room. Charlie felt the weight of their stares, each gaze an unspoken challenge. Who was he to disrupt this meeting? The questions swirled in his head, tugging at his resolve as he wrestled against the urge to retreat. But he had come this far, he couldn't back down now. Rebecca raised an eyebrow, inviting him to continue. He quickened his pace. "I work downstairs, and every day, I see and hear things that maybe you don't. I know what people want to feel, how they communicate." His voice steadied with each word, fueled by a newfound clarity. People crave real stories, not just marketing buzzwords. They want connection. With each passing second, he felt the room shift. He leaned into the discomfort of being both vulnerable and assertive. "When you talked about engagement, it felt like your approach is too polished, too distant. What people really need is authenticity. They want to know they're being heard and understood. That's how you build loyalty." A murmur of consideration spread among the team. Rebecca's expression transformed from surprise to curiosity, as if she were no longer seeing a janitor but a potential ally. Charlie shared anecdotes, weaving them seamlessly into his argument, illustrating the texture of human experience that he understood deeply from the ground level. As he spoke, his fears slowly unraveled, revealing a thread of conviction that was deceptively simple yet profound. He was presenting insights born from observation, from the reality of everyday interactions and the hunger for genuine connection. He remembered a conversation with a regular patron at the cafe near the office. The man had voiced his frustration with brands he felt were out of touch, highlighting a softness that often revealed rich, vulnerable truths. And one of those truths was that connections were seldom one-sided, they required listening as much as speaking. So, he concluded, his heart pounding in a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, if you want to engage your clients, maybe it's time to step down from the pedestal and engage with them where they are. Listen to their stories. Silence enveloped the room, the kind that amplifies emotion until it feels almost tangible. He scanned the faces. Rebecca's frown deepened, yet a hint of contemplation flickered in her blue eyes. What would she say next? Interesting perspective, Charlie, she responded, her voice measured but softening. You've given us a great deal to think about. He felt a surge of triumph, a glimmer of acceptance. For the first time, he had breached the barrier of silence that his profession had allowed. But as lively conversation resumed around him, Charlie realized another fear lingered beneath the surface, the fear of what came next. Could he continue to express himself, or would doubts again strangle his aspirations? Would he seize the opportunities this moment had unlocked, or would he let them slip through his fingers once more? The conference room buzzed with renewed energy, but Charlie stood still, heart racing at the thought of pushing further, of becoming an integral part of the discussion rather than merely an observer. Just as he was about to step back, an unexpected voice cut through the crowd. Wait, who is this guy? A team member turned toward Charlie, confusion darkening their expression. Why would we let a cleaner dictate our strategy? The casual dismissal ignited a surge of anger in Charlie, awakening his inner rebel. Suddenly, the stakes escalated once again. Did he still possess the strength to confront this resentful challenge, or would he retreat back into the anonymity he had fought so hard to escape? The moment had arrived for deeper confrontation, one that could catapult him beyond fear or seal him back into silence. Charlie felt the eyes of the room narrowing on him, the challenging gaze of the team member punctuating the air like an unexpected bolt. In an instant, he was no longer a mere observer. He was a target, and the implications of the challenge buzzed around him, amplifying his anger and frustration. His heart thudded in his chest, but beneath the veil of adrenaline lay a deeper current of determination. This was his moment. Years spent in the background had equipped him with experiences that were now swirling to the forefront, and his mind raced to articulate them into something cohesive as the stares raw with skepticism bore down on him. He opened his mouth, ready to defend himself. I'm not just a cleaner, I'm giving you insights that come from understanding people in ways you might overlook, he declared, his voice stronger than he felt inside. The hum of attention shifted. People leaned in slightly, electrified by a blend of incredulity and curiosity. The team member scoffed, ready to dismiss him entirely, but Charlie pressed on, the rhythm of his thoughts gaining speed. What I've seen every day, the way clients open up, the stories they share with me, it's the pulse of your brand. I've watched so many great marketing strategies fall flat because they lacked real engagement. I see their frustrations firsthand. He paused, deliberately letting the gravity of his words settle into the room. Every detail matters: how they're treated, how they're spoken to. It's that human connection that makes a brand resonate. Not just slogans, but genuine interest in their lives. Rebecca, still intrigued, glanced at her colleagues, issuing a silent signal that prompted hesitant nods around the room. The challenge of the skeptic still loomed, but Charlie shifted his focus, wrapping their criticism into a rallying cry. Think about it, he continued, pacing and becoming more animated as the architecture of his argument took shape. Your conventional approaches might be safe, but they don't inspire loyalty. Without that human factor, you risk losing clients to competitors who do understand how to connect. With newfound conviction, he directed his attention to the skeptics seated around the table. I'm here every day, hearing what your clients really think. What if you leveraged that authenticity? What if you fueled your marketing with real experiences instead of manufactured stories? A spark ignited in Rebecca's eyes, and a murmur rolled through the room. He was pushing further than he had ever imagined he could, exposing not just what he felt was a missed opportunity for the company but unveiling a part of himself that had long remained hidden, his vision, his passion for connection. But just as buoyancy swelled in Charlie, shadows of doubt clawed at him. This was a gamble, and he knew the corporate world was not kind to outsiders. He was treading treacherous waters, and at any moment, the tide could shift against him again. Shouldn't everyone in this company be oriented towards understanding the heart of our clients? Instead of debating an outsider's relevance, why not acknowledge the value of new perspectives? His tone wavered slightly as he slid into vulnerable territory, some faces softened, intrigued yet hesitant. Rebecca cleared her throat, focusing attention back on the team. Let us reflect on what Charlie has said. If we can pivot our discussions into a more experiential approach. Her voice trailed off, but Charlie could see the wheels turning. Then the skeptic's bluster reared its head again, pushing back, demanding a framework that Charlie hadn't begun to sketch out completely. And why should we trust you to steer our strategy? What examples do you have that prove this would work? A gasp rippled through the room at the blatant challenge, and Charlie sensed the domineering presence pinning him in place could bring weight to his ideas even doubt. What did he have to lose? He straightened, resolving on a single bold thought: he would not back down. A crackling energy flowed through him as an idea sparked into clarity. I'll prove my insights matter. Let us set up a small client focus group to explore this firsthand. I'll facilitate it myself. Just as those words tumbled out, he recognized the enormity of what he had just committed to: a public transformation that could either cement his place in this whirlwind or collapse spectacularly. He didn't know what Rebecca would say next, or how the team would react. All he had was a flicker of hope ignited in the aftermath of that challenge, holding on to the possibility that he could emerge not just as a contributor but as a catalyst for change. But a knot twisted in his stomach as the reality of impending accountability loomed. Could this gamble reshape the relationships he yearned to forge, or would it leave him exposed, vulnerable, swallowed once again into quiet resignation? The tension hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. Let us see if Charlie can actually deliver, the skeptic declared, and Charlie felt a mix of vindication and dread. It was undeniable the stakes had never been higher. The time had come to face his deepest fears and prove his worth, for this opportunity could be the tipping point of his own reinvention. How would he navigate this challenge that would redefine not only his place within the company but the standards of connection they stood for? The weight of the moment pulsed through Charlie as he walked out of the conference room, the challenge echoing in his mind. He could feel the skepticism swirling, a heavy mist that threatened to choke the conviction he had mustered. Yet, beneath it all, a flicker of determination ignited. This was his chance, not just to prove himself to others but to reveal a part of himself he had tucked away for far too long. As he stepped into the stark hallway, unadorned with the embellishments of success that decorated his colleagues' offices, he allowed his thoughts to race. How was he going to orchestrate this focus group? There was so much at stake. Failure was not an option. The risk of another retreat into the shadows overshadowed everything. He reached for his phone, the familiar device now feeling more like a lifeline. Scrolling through his contacts, he hesitated. Who could he recruit to help him? Rebecca, their newfound supporter? Perhaps she could lend insight on the company's vision. Her perspective could align with his mission. But there was more to consider, he realized. He needed authentic voices, ones that would echo the real desires of their clients. As he walked, balancing his phone in one hand and his thoughts in the other, he stumbled upon a coffee shop just off the company's premises. The smell of roasted beans wafted through the air, mingling with the faint sounds of voices in conversation. He stopped, his heart racing as he pushed open the door. The buzzing atmosphere was invigorating. Perhaps it was the perfect place to gather ideas. He ordered a cup of coffee and settled at a small table, pulling out a notepad. This time would not be wasted. He scribbled names, ideas, and potential questions for the group. What did clients value most? What experiences had left them feeling connected or disconnected? Each thought flowed from his pen like a vision forming in the mist. Over the next hour, he mapped out the direction he wanted the focus group to take. What had begun as fear transformed into a scheming thread of potential. He envisioned the reactions he would provoke and the trust he could garner from clients willing to share their narratives. Question by question, he tailored the format to evoke genuine responses, wanting to weave their voices into the fabric of his proposal. Suddenly, a premonition washed over him, a feeling that he needed more than just questions. He needed depth. Charlie sighed, realizing that his role as a facilitator would require him to be vulnerable, to share his own misunderstandings, the assumptions he had made about clients before truly engaging with them. How could he expect open dialogue without reciprocating honesty? It was a risk, but he was beginning to understand that honesty would hold the key to transformation, not just for the company's branding but for his own professional persona. Fueled by a sense of urgency, he began journaling his thoughts more fervently. What was he afraid of revealing? Would sharing his own missteps alienate him, or would it invite trust? A new anxiety gripped him. He felt the room constricting around his mind. His past haunts loomed, the years spent blending into the environment, silenced by fear. Now, he grappled with the prospect of being raw in front of potential critics. With his heart pounding, he called Rebecca. "I need your help. I desire genuine feedback, and I think your perspective can guide me through the experience we need." Her response was immediate, her enthusiasm palpable through the phone. "Absolutely, Charlie. I believe in what you're trying to do. Let us see this through." As he ended the call, a renewed vigor sparked within him. He wasn't in this alone anymore, he had a collaborator, and the notion of sharing responsibility lightened his burden. He decided to gather a mix of clients, a broad representation of demographics, each carrying their own distinct narratives. But beneath this vein of excitement, a gnawing worry remained. Could he open up enough to inspire others? Could he confront his own insecurities directly enough? The stakes continued to rise. Failure could result in more than just professional embarrassment. Charlie caught a glimpse of his reflection in the coffee shop window, a man on the edge of reinvention. It was time to confront not only the critics but also his own trepidation. This was about crafting a narrative that could integrate his past and the vision he held for the future. With a deep breath, he closed his notebook. It was time to step further into the light, harnessing all the insights he had amassed. As he prepared to return to the office, one question made itself clear: was he prepared to show his true self to the world, risking vulnerability for authenticity? He walked away from the coffee shop with a specific purpose now: to turn the focus group into a beacon of change that could shape their brand's identity and his own. He wouldn't merely participate, he would lead. But as the door swung shut behind him, a thought chilled him. What if the truth they uncovered during those discussions shattered the very preconceptions he was trying to transform? Charlie's mind buzzed as he stepped back into the sterile corridors of his workplace. Each passing moment was a whirlwind of anticipation and dread, the weight of his mission pressing against the walls of his resolve. He clutched his notepad, now an inadequate shield against the looming challenges. The reflections swirling within him were both sharpening and muddling his determination. Was he ready to uncover truths he had so desperately hidden? Back at his desk, the hum of computer screens and the brisk pace of colleagues rushing by felt both familiar and alien. It struck him how most of his peers rushed through their days, oblivious to the layers of complexity beneath their surfaces. He had always been one in the crowd, too timid to assert his presence. But now, he was about to tip the scales, to claim his place not just as a participant but as a leader. He opened his laptop, the screen lighting up with reminders and emails that contradicted his sharpened focus. He stowed them away, intent on creating an agenda for the focus group that would not only reflect the company's intent but echo the voices of their clients' voices he aimed to film through the lens of his own vulnerability. Rebecca joined him shortly after, her energy infusing the room with a dynamic charge. She was eager, an excellent balance to his hesitance. "Have you thought about the logistics? We need to establish ground rules that encourage openness," she said, her fingers dancing over keys as she noted down suggestions. Ground rules, yes, Charlie echoed, his mind flickering back to earlier missteps where he had overlooked the atmosphere in meetings. If he was to encourage authenticity, he needed to guarantee that no voice felt compromised. Mutual respect, honesty, and perhaps a touch of humor to weave the tension away. Each detail mattered. As they refined the framework, Charlie spoke candidly about his past errors in judgment. "I realize now how often I assume things without verification," he admitted. "I overlooked the nuances in client relationships, thinking I could read between the lines instead of listening." Rebecca nodded attentively. "Acknowledging that is a strength, Charlie. Share that with them. You don't just want their opinions but their stories. When they see you can be honest, they'll feel safe to reciprocate." With each shared insight, Charlie felt a tentative but swelling confidence rise within. Vulnerability, he learned, was not synonymous with weakness, it was a catalyst for connection. The looming fear of judgment gradually dulled, traded for the brighter urgency to foster a real dialogue. Their hours passed swiftly, engrossed in planning how best to facilitate the focus group. Charlie took pride in the evolving direction, yet an unsettling flicker of anxiety remained. What if the truths gleaned from this openness disrupted processes long upheld? Would voices reveal flaws in the company that had become part of his identity? He paused, wrestling with this unease. Each revelation could ripple through not just the focus group but also impact his role entirely. He drew a deep breath, he had to embrace possibility over fear. Failure was merely a step in the journey. This was an opportunity to grow, not just to avoid downfall. As the day wore on, Charlie reminded himself that confronting his fears was as critical as leading the discussion itself. Their focus group would be a mirror reflecting not just client desires, but possibly his own deeper insights waiting to be unearthed. That night, sleep felt elusive. Thoughts collided. Could he reconcile the shadows of his past with the fresh light he aimed to emit? The stakes were high. Meeting the clients with raw honesty could transform not only their perceptions but his own. And then, it struck him the call to action resonated louder than the fear. If he remained stalwart through the process of unearthing layers, perhaps he'd not only uncover insights vital to the pitch but perhaps also redefine his narrative as a professional. Grounding himself in this purpose, he finally surrendered to sleep, his dreams a collage of expected faces and unheard stories. Yet, as dawn broke, one nagging question loomed larger than ever: what if the truths revealed during their discussions forced him to reckon with a reality he wasn't ready to face? The final answer could change everything. As the sun cast inviting rays through the window, Charlie felt the warmth seep into his skin, but inside, a tempest brewed. He had prepared overnight, gathering notes and reflections, yet the familiar pangs of anxiety surged through him. Today was not about merely presenting ideas but about fostering connections, eliciting stories that could reshape both client perceptions and his very own professional identity. Arriving at the conference room, he found it stark and uninviting, a stark contrast to his aspirations. The long table gleamed under the fluorescent lights, devoid of warmth, echoing the impersonal exchanges he had experienced for too long. He rearranged chairs, creating a circle instead of a straight line. This small adjustment represented a deliberate choice to emphasize equality over hierarchy. Every voice mattered. Rebecca entered, bringing her vibrant energy with her. "Are you ready?" she asked, tilting her head with concern mingled with encouragement. Charlie hesitated, unsure of whether to voice his apprehension. He ultimately shook his head, admitting, "No, not just yet. I'm battling self-doubt. What if I screw this up?" "Don't," she replied matter-of-factly, a firmness in her voice. "This is your moment, reclaim it. Remember, you're not just leading them, you're inviting them into a space of mutual growth." As the participants began to file in, Charlie felt a shift. Each face held a distinct story, a unique perspective waiting to be shared. His heart raced as the group settled. He initiated with a personal anecdote, recounting a moment of failure from his early days at the company. The room quieted, and as he exposed his vulnerabilities, the tension dissipated. "Failure taught me something fundamental," he declared, gauging the expressions around the room. "That we must face our challenges head-on, rather than sidestepping them." There was a ripple of nods, and a gaze of recognition exchanged among participants. Charlie sensed the hesitance begin to fade. Throughout the session, he guided the discussion with intent, keenly aware that his role modeled the importance of authenticity. Rebecca's notes filled up with candor as he challenged each attendee to share not just their opinions but their narratives. Stories emerged, tales of misunderstanding and miscommunication, clients reflecting similar past fears, perhaps those risen from similar corporate climbs. With each utterance, Charlie realized they were constructing a tapestry woven with shared experiences. But then, one participant, a long-serving client named Marcus, raised his hand. The air grew still. "I like the direction this is going," he began hesitantly, "but I've had my own frustrations. We've often felt unheard, like our needs didn't matter." Charlie's stomach knotted. His past mistakes were now laid bare, and here was a chance for confrontation. Yet instead of recoiling, he leaned in. "Can you share an example?" he urged, his voice steady without succumbing to fear. When Marcus spoke, his words struck like thunder, a piercing critique that sliced through the comfortable assumptions Charlie had operated under. That was when it hit him, the severity of unearthing hard truths could both shatter the status quo and catalyze change. The feedback, though disheartening, echoed the struggle he, too, had faced in hesitating to voice concerns or confront uncomfortable realities. It was both terrifying and responsible to address these revelations now. The meeting unfolded into a discussion richer than he imagined, a kaleidoscope of discrepancies between their perceptions and those of the clientele. By confronting the discomfort and navigating the criticisms, Charlie transformed into a conduit for growth. He could feel his hesitation shift into a responsibility to address those very gaps, and that made him feel powerful. As they neared the end, Charlie felt a surge of determination. The experience had unlocked a deeper part of him, one that craved more than just compliance with corporate norms. Did this newfound strength mean a fresh trajectory for him? As he collected final thoughts from the room, a commotion in the corridor disrupted the moment. The door swung open. A familiar figure, the CEO, stood shocked at the bustling scene, curiosity etched across his face. What's happening here?" he stammered. Charlie's heart raced. This was the moment to solidify his newfound strength, to present not just observations but aspirations born from vulnerability. In that charged silence, Charlie faced the unexpected question forming in his mind, racing pulse urging him on. What if this moment of exposure could redefine not only the focus group's impact but his role in the company itself? Charlie's pulse quickened, a rush of adrenaline fueling the determination brewing within him. The CEO's unexpected entrance hung heavily in the air, a mix of opportunity and trepidation. This was a moment for authenticity, an extraordinary chance to present the transformed dialogue taking place within the sterile walls of the conference room. "Welcome, sir," Charlie began, buoyed by a newfound confidence that had emerged during the session. "We were discussing how we can better align our services with our clients' needs, real needs, not just the surface-level assumptions we've defaulted to. There's been some frank feedback from our clients, and it's been enlightening." The CEO's brow furrowed, his interest piqued, but Charlie sensed skepticism lurking beneath the surface. Clearing his throat, he pressed on. "Marcus has raised critical points about feeling unheard. We can't afford to dismiss these experiences, they reveal profound gaps in how we communicate." For a heartbeat, the room shifted. The participants looked to the CEO, eyes wide with anticipation. In that single moment, Charlie recognized the stakes. His vulnerability had launched a fragile bridge toward change, and he refused to abandon it now. "It's clear we need to rethink our approach, turning this conversation into actionable strategies to rebuild trust and commitment." The CEO's expression softened as he digested the intensity of the exchange. "And what do you suggest?" he asked, words purposeful. Charlie took a breath, an exhilarating rush washing over him. We need to formalize feedback loops, establishing a channel for continuous dialogue. Involving clients in the decision-making process will demonstrate that we value their insights and experiences. The discussion evolved further as Charlie unveiled his vision of a series of workshops aimed at understanding client needs through a collaborative framework bridging gaps and demonstrating commitment beyond mere transactional exchanges. The room buzzed with energy, participants chimed in enthusiastically, and even Marcus nodded approvingly. It became a transformative cycle, each idea prompting deeper inquiry. Charlie felt his identity shifting with each contribution, from hesitant employee to proactive leader. He could see the paths of possibility unfurling before him as colleagues voiced ideas previously unshared due to fear or complacency. "I like it," the CEO finally said. "But how do we ensure this isn't just a one-off discussion? How do we keep this momentum alive?" Charlie's mind raced, adrenaline still surging. This was an invitation to embed change deeper than surface-level initiatives. We can create an ongoing initiative, a regular review panel. We can include members from each department to ensure we're aligned internally, stakeholders and clients represented. With each passing moment, Charlie's vision solidified more clearly. It's about instilling an ethos of active listening and community within our organization. The CEO's gaze turned thoughtful, and Charlie sensed a shift in the power dynamics. His ideas were not just being heard, they were being deeply considered. A shocking realization dawned: this moment transcended mere professional development. It was Charlie laying the foundation for a cultural renaissance within the company. As energy coursed through the room, Charlie resolved to transform not just the immediate feedback but the corporate culture itself. Suddenly, the reality of his aspirations crashed into a stark realization: could he truly navigate the treacherous landscape of corporate politics while implementing these changes? It felt exhilarating yet daunting, the weight of potential consequences hanging over him. Just then, the CEO leaned forward, a gleam in his eye. "I want you to lead this initiative, Charlie. You've shown insight today that suggests you could steer our interactions into a new era." Charlie's heart raced at the magnitude of the moment. While a part of him thrummed with excitement at this new responsibility, another part felt the sheer weight of the expectations to be the architect of change. To show conviction in vulnerability is the catalyst for collective progress. As the discussions wrapped up, Charlie noted the rising tide of enthusiasm alongside the lingering undercurrent of doubt in his gut. The road ahead would be unpredictable, rife with challenges and resistance, but it was a path he was now determined to embrace. And as he locked eyes with the CEO, a question hovered in the depths of his consciousness: was he truly ready to lead this transformation and uphold the ideals he had so passionately ignited in others? This was just the beginning. Charlie returned to his desk, the euphoric energy pulsating through him as he sat down, his mind a whirlwind of possibilities. Leading the initiative wasn't simply a responsibility, it had become a personal mission. Yet, beneath the excitement lurked a flickering doubt. With a warrior's resolve, he turned his attention to the implications of the task ahead. Each step he took in this new role could either echo as a resounding success or tumble into a cacophony of failure. The first challenge presented itself in the form of logistics. How would he structure the workshops to ensure genuine participation? His mind raced as he brainstormed methods to create an environment that fostered open dialogue. Ideas surrounding ground rules fluttered through his thoughts, yet they felt abstract and insufficient at the moment. The urgency to transition these thoughts into actionable steps gripped him tightly. He closed his eyes and visualized the dynamic he wanted to cultivate: an inclusive setting where individuals felt safe expressing their viewpoints. At the same time, he grappled with a stark reality: certain departments had ingrained practices that could resist change. Could he persuade seasoned professionals, rooted in their ways, to embrace this new approach? Charlie leaned back in his chair, reminiscing about moments when he, too, had felt stuck, re-traumatized by environments resistant to innovation. It was a sobering thought, yet it kept him grounded. What would have encouraged him to voice his needs? He recalled how Marcus's frankness had shaken the room. Shouldn't the workshops promote that very authenticity? The answers lay within the painful experiences he had endured. As the day wore on, he composed a tentative agenda for the first workshop, hastily scribbling down points that encouraged collaboration and civility. He would call upon the expertise in the room, consolidating various perspectives. Each section of the workshop needed to evoke critical self-reflection, challenging his team to confront their biases. But who would he partner with who could provide real insight into client perspectives? The answer struck him with a jolt: Marcus. They hadn't always seen eye to eye, but his criticism had revealed painful truths about their practices. He could connect with him now, drawing on that adversarial relationship to harness the energy of dissent in a constructive manner. The sun began to set outside, shadows stretching across the room as he dialed Marcus's number. It rang, and with each heartbeat, his apprehension mounted. What if Marcus rejected the idea? What if, in pursuing this transformative journey, he alienated himself from his peers rather than unifying them? Charlie, Marcus answered, his voice a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Hey, Marcus. I know we've had our differences in the past, but I believe we can do something significant here. His voice wavered for a brief moment, but he steadied it with determination. I'd like to invite you to co-facilitate the upcoming workshops. We need your insights to ensure we're on the right track. Silence blanketed the line, and Charlie's heart raced. Would this be the moment where everything began to fray, or would it ignite a resurgence of cooperation? Let me think about it. I want to make sure this isn't just another exercise in futility, Marcus replied, cautious yet open. You'll have a voice in shaping it. I'm serious when I say I want your contributions, Charlie assured him, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. After hanging up, he felt a surge of clarity. He wasn't just steering an initiative, he was dismantling the walls of complacency brick by brick. Yet lurking just below the surface was the tantalizing question: if he could construct a new paradigm, what hidden enemies could expose themselves in the form of internal sabotage? The gravity of his choices tightened like a noose, and as the last sunbeams disappeared outside, Charlie sat silently, poised at the precipice of inevitable conflict. Was he prepared to confront not just the external challenges but the internal turmoil they would evoke? His determination hardened, leaving him with a sharp realization: the greatest battles wouldn't stem from his clients but from the very people he sought to galvanize within his company. And so, with renewed urgency, Charlie prepared to step deeper into the fray, ready to challenge the status quo. Much closer than he anticipated lurked a confrontation that held the potential to derail everything he was attempting to achieve. Charlie stood at the precipice of transformation, a convergence of anxiety and exhilaration coursing through him as he prepared to lead the upcoming workshops. In many ways, he felt as if he were about to leap into a canyon of uncertainty, every fiber of his being aware that failure could mean falling back into the shadows from which he had finally emerged. In the days leading up to the first workshop, his resolve solidified. He meticulously crafted an agenda designed to encourage open dialogue, intertwining structured activities with space for spontaneous conversations. The first step was almost ceremonial. He assured Rebecca of the process, confident in their alignment. These workshops aren't just about gathering feedback. They're about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and heard, an effort to revolutionize our client relations, he stated with conviction. As chair of the initiative, he recognized that this moment held significant weight not just for his professional aspirations but for his self-worth. The distance between cleaner and influencer had begun to shrink, yet the possibility of backsliding into complacency lingered. With every action, he was more than an employee, he was shaping something monumental. On the day of the first workshop, Charlie arrived early, nerves twining with anticipation. He reorganized the room, creating intimate circles rather than the conventional table setup. As participants trickled in, he caught their apprehensive glances but offered warm welcomes, an anchor for the atmosphere he aimed to foster. With Marcus co-facilitating, an unexpected camaraderie emerged, built on their mutual understanding of discomfort in corporate environments. Marcus's engagement encouraged more participants to share, his honest voice cutting through fear like a guiding light. Together, they navigated the tangled web of feedback, allowing space for participants to voice concerns and constructive critiques. The results were unprecedented. The once static exchanges morphed into spirited discussions about connection and understanding. As Charlie stepped back, he felt validated, a shift in the room like electricity brought forth by unity. The company's walls echoed with profound realizations. What had initially begun as a mission to improve engagement was evolving into something profound, an alchemy of voices crafting a narrative of authenticity. The day solidified his growth, transforming him into a leader who actively shaped discourse rather than merely participating in it. But, as recognition began to accumulate, Charlie felt an unsettling thought rise: could he genuinely maintain this momentum in the face of inevitable opposition? His diversity of ideas and collaboration would challenge entrenched norms, and pushback was a certainty. In the following weeks, the sting of challenges deepened as Charlie and Marcus presented the feedback to upper management. Passionate debates ignited, his visions often stifled at first by a resistant few. This pushback crystallized a reality for Charlie: acceptance wouldn't come easily to all. Yet through it all, he remained resolute. He had once blended into the shadows, but no longer would he let criticism dim his message. Noticing a pivotal shift, Charlie forged ahead despite mounting challenges. Even when the dialogues grew heated, he initiated incentive conversations, demonstrating realigning perspectives to shape understanding. Initially hesitant colleagues began to see him as a change agent rather than an outsider. Striking this balance became second nature. He fostered an environment rooted in authenticity while demonstrating unwavering conviction to propel the initiative forward. For Charlie, each workshop became a testament to not just collective recalibration but his individual evolution. It no longer felt like a solitary journey but a united pursuit of something great, and in time, the cycle of engagement bore fruit. As the last of the workshops concluded, a remarkable thing happened. The feedback circulated among departments, morphing into comprehensive change initiatives that impacted projects and deliverables. The company's clients began to feel the shift, the long-absent pulse of connection rekindled. And just as newfound recognition washed over Charlie, the external feedback arrived. Clients expressed their gratitude for the changes becoming visible in service and approach. The company transformed socially, evolving slowly into a haven for authenticity. With every milestone, Charlie emerged as a symbol of courage, and as the accolades poured in, he felt a surge of deep satisfaction and fulfillment. He was no longer just Charlie the cleaner, he was an integral figure leading the charge for genuine connection within a world spun with disconnection. One final meeting with Rebecca solidified it all. On her face was a look of admiration. "You've accomplished what many deemed impossible," she remarked, her blue eyes bright with newfound respect. "You've reshaped our approach, opening pathways that deepen our relationships with clients in ways we've yet to realize. We need you to continue leading these changes." In that moment, pride coursed through Charlie as he acknowledged the profound transformation not just of his role within the company, but of himself. He had conquered insecurities, emerging as a confident leader destined not just to influence a corporate culture but to inspire a legacy of change built on the very foundations of human connection. As he stepped out into the bright New York day, a smile graced his face. For so long, he had walked in shadows, but not anymore. Today, he stood painted in purpose and possibility, ready to embrace whatever came next. This is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm you need to support the story that inspires personal overcoming. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share what you do in Charlie's shoes. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Only true fans of personal growth understand the importance of supporting these journeys.